completely different stages in his career, and were he to win and, ride that white Bronco horse, off into the sunset and call it a career, I mean, what better and more storied of a way can one go? And I think it would just really, once and for all, shake off that whole, Peyton Manning not winning enough Super Bowls, not being good enough in the playoffs kind of asterisk from his legacy. It wouldn't completely erase it, but it would definitely, make it much more faded, to the point where you really couldn't make that strong of an argument, to where it really takes a lot of away from Peyton's career, because, he didn't win the playoffs, he didn't win the Super Bowls. Like, it like I said, it wouldn't completely erase that, but it would take a lot of that away. Now, on the flip side, if Peyton Manning and the Broncos are to lose this, and this is Peyton Manning's final year, Peyton Manning will it will still have been impressive of how great his career was at all the points in it. It will still have been impressive that he was able to get back to the Super Bowl at this point in his career, but it will still come down to, ultimately when push comes to shove, Peyton Manning wasn't clutch, wasn't great at winning the big game. So it's huge. To me, that's where the stakes are the hugest, and everything is the most permanent, and cemented into history and finalized, so that's why Peyton Manning is the biggest storyline in the Super Bowl, in my opinion. Now, as I mentioned, the other big storyline would be the opposing team's quarterback, the favored to win team's quarterback, the MVP of the NFL this season, one Superman, Dabba Dabba Doo, Cam Newton. Now, if you're wondering what the Dabba Dabba Doo reference was, that was just something I made up right now because Cam has a touchdown dance celebration pose. One of his 12,483 touchdown celebration dance poses that he's got is he's got a name for it. He calls it a dab, and so that's where I threw that in. Pretty clever, huh? But anyway, Cam Newton, back in the Christian Ponder draft, as a matter of fact, Vikings fans remember when that was. Cam Newton came out as the number one overall pick in that draft. There was a lot of speculation leading up to that draft if a quarterback should be taken at all, if it should be Cam Newton, if it should be Blaine Gabbert, as a matter of fact. But Cam Newton ended up going number one overall to the Panthers, whatever year that was, 4, 5, 6 years ago, somewhere in that range. And many years before that, Peyton Manning was the number one overall pick in the draft the year that he came out over Ryan Leaf, who went number two, and that was a big debate as well, believe it or not, looking back. Man, looking back on some of these, it's just like, wow, what was everybody thinking? But this Super Bowl is, in fact, the first time ever in Super Bowl history that two quarterbacks drafted number one overall in the draft face off against each other for the Lombardi Trophy, which is the name of the Super Bowl trophy, by the way. If we have any, females who will be attending parties listening this week that, don't necessarily know a ton about football, yes, it is the Lombardi Trophy is the name of the trophy. Or guys, for that matter, or kids, or, whatever. Just saying, you never know what people know, so I try to throw it all out there. Whether you be an expert sports fan or a very beginner sports fan, I try to, give you info at all levels. That's all I'm trying to do. But anyway, back to where I was. If Peyton Manning isn't your thing from a storyline standpoint, your other go-to A-topic storyline would definitely be Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a very polarizing figure for whatever reason or reasons in football, or in sports in general, for that matter. Me personally, for the record, I don't know if I've said this on the show or not, pretty sure I have, but I can't stand Cam Newton. I cannot stand Cam Newton. There are things about his game as a player that they don't make me think less of him or anything like that. Like I have no issues with Cam as a player, but he is overrated as a passing quarterback without question. But I don't dislike him, or that has nothing to do with me not being able to stand him. Where I can't stand Cam Newton is just the perception of who he is as a person to me. Now, and this is where most people are separated on Cam Newton. Cam Newton is polarizing. You either love Cam Newton or you strongly dislike Cam Newton. There are not a whole lot of people. There are some. There are not a whole lot of people that are, in the gray area on Cam. Like, I don't know. Like, whatever. Indifferent. We'll say, there aren't a whole lot of people that are indifferent on Cam Newton. They either strongly like him or strongly dislike him. I'm one that strongly dislikes him. I don't know him personally, so it's all just perception and whatnot, but I will explain why. First and foremost, let's get the elephant out of the room. It has nothing to do whatsoever with the color of his skin. Period. Fact. So, it's very similar to the same reason that coming out of college and through his first year in the NFL, I couldn't stand Johnny Manziel. Same exact personality, or very, very similar of, personality traits that contribute to me for not liking either of them. And to sum it up, I'll put it the way I did in a tweet to Brandon Molesky on KFan a week or two ago. When it comes to Cam Newton, it's hard to celebrate someone who's constantly celebrating themselves. It's hard to celebrate someone who's constantly celebrating themselves. Yes, I just repeated that. But I did that because I want you to chew on it and really think about it. I'm the type of person that when I see someone praising themselves, celebrating themselves, it takes away any feeling that I may have of being compelled to celebrate them for whatever's going on that they're celebrating themselves for. Like, okay, well, cool, they're already celebrating themselves, so like, yeah, I don't feel the need to now anymore. Like it's, and where my level of dislike for Cam supersedes Johnny was, Johnny, he'd do the same thing, everything he'd ever do, he'd have the, the money symbol, and it was just like, every time, man, drove me nuts. But my issue with Cam, where he takes it way further, Cam not only will do a little dance or a little pose, but he'll do a little dance or a little pose, and then another pose, and then another pose, and then another dance, and then he'll stop, and then he'll do one more pose and one more dance, and two more poses. It never freaking ends. Like, seriously, can we put the timer on this guy? Can we still have that clock going after a touchdown play, so that if it takes a ridiculous amount of time, we get the delay of game penalty, and there's at least some consequence and some impact? Like, I miss that. When did they take that away? I remember when they put that in years ago. When did they take that away? Because we need to reinvoke that with Cam Newton. It's so much. It's so overindulgent. Like, I have no problem with people showing emotion. I have no problem with people being happy and celebrating a big play. But the way Cam does it just really bothers me. He separates himself away from his teammates to do this at the end of the play. And just for, like I said, for 20 to 30 seconds, we'll sit there and basically just go, look at me, cheer for me, I'm great, look at me, yay me, I love me, 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 me. Would you just do a little pose or a little dance for 5 to 10 seconds and then turn around and hug and high five and pat on the back your teammates who worked their butt off that entire drive and on that play to make it possible for a touchdown to be the result for your team? Like, would it kill you? Really? And that's where I'm coming from. That's my perception. You know, I'm entitled to it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying you should have it. Just saying that's my perception, and that's why that's my perception. And of course, in classic Cam fashion, he's been commenting on these topics all week for, you know, all the media coverage leading up to the Super Bowl this week. Not only did he say the words, and I quote, at like his first interview of the, you know, Super Bowl, beginning of the Super Bowl week coverage or whatever here on Monday, he said, and I quote, I'm a black quarterback, and that may scare a lot of people because they've never seen anything that they can compare me to. You can't say those words. Even if there's a because that followed that second half, dude, you can't say I'm a black quarterback and that may scare people. Like, come on, man. If a white man, like if anyone of any other race made that same comment, like, whoo, dude, people would be hating on him like crazy. They get fired. Like, you can't talk like that. So not only does he not get that and, you know, feel the need to bring it up on his own in a press conference, then at like one of the very next press conferences, when those comments were brought up and he's being asked to explain them, he immediately goes into denial and dismissal. Like the immature, just, I can't stand him. I'm sorry. I can't. But they ask him to explain it, and he goes, I don't want color to be a part of this at all. Like, I don't even want us to bring up color. You know, like, I'm a quarterback, I'm an athlete, whatever. Dude, you are the one who brought it up. You are the one who insisted that it be talked about, and you said it. And now someone's just asking you to clarify your comments, and you're telling them that, you know, they should leave color out of it. You made it about color. You're the one who brought up color in the first place. Man, like, so that lack of accountability, man, how can you be so dumb? How can you be so hypocritical? You know, just own the comment and explain it, you know, or apologize for it, or retract it, or something. Don't just go, no, it's dumb to talk about that. We shouldn't talk about that. Anybody who talks about that is dumb. Well, you brought it up, and you're the only one so far who's talked about it. Am I the only one? I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one. So then, further on, this is the one that got me even more, because so many people don't see through the veil on this next part, because they're too positive, they're too naive, they're too assumptuous. You know, they always take the freaking bright side of everything. Like, oh no, people are good. Like, people are everything. Nobody's just one thing of any kind. You know, everybody's everything. But in that second interview this week, he goes on to comment on how he knows that people love him, people hate him, you know, people look up to him, people look down on him, all that stuff. He acknowledged all that, said that, you know, he knows that is the case, but that he